we're going to talk about specifically how organizations can build a modern strategy that aligns analytics excellence with real business goals. We know that data is only as powerful as the strategy behind it. Without alignment, even the best analytics capabilities can miss the mark. But when analytics and business goals move together, that's when the true transformation happens. In this panel, we'll hear from leaders who are breaking down silos, driving cross-functional collaboration, and building cultures where data is not just accessible, but actionable. So please join me in welcoming our expert panel to the stage as we explore what it really takes to make analytics the backbone of strategic decision-making. As I call them on stage, please welcome them with a round of applause. Iris C. Wang, Head of Analytics, AI and Automation Strategy, Metrolinx. Sumit Bhatia, Senior Director, Head of Strategy and Enablement, Sun Life. Sandeep Agarwal, Senior Director of Technology, Global Wealth Engineering, Scotiabank. Doug Harrison, Canadian Country Manager, Dataiko. And moderating this session is going to be Dipankar Paul, Associate Director, Data Platform Engineering and Strategy, OMERS. So let's dive into the blueprint of smarter data strategy. And we're almost there.
We're almost there.
Almost there. Okay, does anyone know any I joke then?
Yeah. Yeah? Good, Iris? Okay. Sit there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely, and over to you.
Thank you. Hello, beautiful people. How are you doing? Wow. I joined from yesterday, learning so much about data, AI, analytics, and of course, agentic AI. And you already know, to have the agentic AI or AI, you must need to have data. And when you have data in the organization, what do you need? You must need to have a data strategy. How many of you in the room knows about data strategy? Wow, good. We got a good audience. But let me help you there who doesn't really know about data strategy. Last week, I learned that in our neighborhood, there's a new restaurant that opened. And me and my neighbor went to that restaurant to try out the food and the menu. You know, got some space, nice space in the restaurant, sitting down and chit-chatting. Any general or regular restaurant, what happened? You're sitting there, and the waiter will come with a menu. But this restaurant is a bit different, I can tell you. Instead of the menu, the guy or the waiter came with the raw food, all the raw materials. So tomatoes, onion, raw fish, raw meat. I was looking at my friend, our neighbor, was a bit confused. And then waiter, I just laughed and said, yeah, we have everything. Just tell me what you want. I can just make it for you. See, at that point of time, we're super frustrated because we don't know what is available. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't get any guidance because when you go to the restaurant, you find out waiter will tell you, hey, this is the today's special. This is for the kids menu. If you're a vegetarian, you got this section covered. We don't get any kind of guidance. And that menu actually helping you to get things easier, faster, and you have the guidance. And exactly in the organization, you need that menu. And that menu is your data strategy. So data strategy is about collecting your data, managing your data, and delivering your data. With that, now I would like to talk with our expert today. You're going to learn what they're doing with their organization, and let's learn all together. Why don't we get to know each other a bit more? How about you? Start from there, yeah?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Doug Harrison. I'm the country manager for Data IQ. I've been here for about 4 years, but I've been in the data and analytics space for about 30 years now. Had the privilege of working with large enterprise accounts all across Canada in regulated and unregulated industries, and really happy to come and talk today. I think I come at things from a little bit different perspective because I've played the role of architect, but also business leader, and I get to work with lots of different companies at lots of different levels of maturity. And I have lots to talk about in terms of data.
Sumit, please.
Pleasure being here, and thank you for having me. Sumit Bhatia, I'm a Senior Director of Data Strategy and Enablement at Sun Life. And I was hired three and a half years ago to come build the data team for the asset management function here at Sun Life. And those who know me also know I'm a strong proponent of neurodiversity and diversity of thought, and I'm a board advisor for one of the small companies that focus on hiring autistic and neurodiverse kids, teaching them about data-related careers. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. This is Sandeep. I'm part of Scotiabank. I manage data engineering team within global wealth domain within Scotiabank. I'm responsible in building the enterprise strategy for data engineering and how we're going to leverage AI in Scotiabank.
Iris, please.
Hi, I'm Iris Wang. I'm currently with Metrolinx. I'm leading the team of data analytics and AI strategy within the company. Data strategy is my favorite and least favorite subject in the whole world. So I think we'll have a very interesting discussion today.
Thank you, Iris, and everyone. I'll just tell a little bit about myself. I lead data engineering and strategy at Omers. It's one of the largest pension funds. I'm very passionate about the community. I do lead one of the largest data community in Canada called Toronto Data Professional Community. I do write technical blog, I do public speaking. Also, I'm very proud to receive from Microsoft the most valuable professional in the data platform. I was one of 8 in Canada. With that, let's learn together. The very first question, it's for you, Arish. What is your organization doing regarding the data strategy?
We've had, I think, 4 enterprise-wide data strategies in the past 15 years or so now, most of which were before my times at the company. The last round, we gathered all the stakeholders together. We had a very large community of practice. We surveyed everyone, all the business units, all the data owners, custodians, users. And we had not 1, but 2 Big 4 consulting companies come in to help us build the final package. So we ended up with a data strategy package that was over 100 pages long, and we rolled it out to the entire company. Sounds pretty nice, right? Except anyone who has been through this will know that it does not work. And that was the last round. It's not this round we're on right now. So a few years ago, we finally got tired of armchair philosophy. So we figured we should do things a bit differently. So we built a very lightweight data strategy. We didn't even call it data strategy. We just had a number of POCs and some thoughts put together as a guideline, as a starting point. We only detailed what we could be relatively confident with in the near future, and painted the future in broad strokes. Why did we do that? Because if there's anything we know about the future, is that it's going to be different from what we anticipate. So we continuously and iteratively improved upon this strategy using practice to gather feedback and put more and more details into how we would design it and how we plan everything. And that's the only thing that has worked so far, because in theory, practice and theory are the same, but in practice, they're very different. we're still a very long way to go. We have learned a lot. There's a lot more that we still need to learn, but hopefully our experience so far can help somebody in this room avoid some detours. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. How about Sumit? You want to share?
Yeah, like data strategy, right? It's a big word, right? Like many times we all call our data strategy with the evolving changes around us. Every data strategy you make, in 2 years, it becomes absolute and we have to reset ourselves. Given, like, I'll give you an example how Scotiabank did, right? We have set up at one stage that we'll set up data lake, we'll set up big data warehouses before that, and then we use that as our data strategy for using for our different needs. At one stage, it became to a situation where we have so much of data, we don't know how to use it, and we just have the data. And that's where we realized it is not just about having the data. Then we moved to a strategy now instead of using that data products, right? Where we are moving to a data product study, data as a product, what we call it. To give an example, right, within Scotia Wealth Management, we have different line of business which Scotiabank has acquired over the years, like Scotia McLeod, Big Trust, MD Financials, JFL, to name few. These all are Scotia entities, but they operate in a different manner. But if you want to see a consolidated view of a customer across all of them, we don't have such availability before we reset our data strategy to make data as a product so that we can have one customer view at least for all of them. So rather than having everybody ingesting to a data lake and the data is available, but we don't know how to use it, we move it to a product-based vision. That's where I can keep it.
Thank you. Sumit?
Data strategy sounds like such a fancy word, right? It suddenly makes everyone sound so important. But coming from an enterprise data strategy team, every function and every business I talk to has a strategy. It's like thousands of strategies. We have a business strategy, we have a tech strategy, we have a data strategy. It's just strategies after strategies after strategies. So my team follows certain fundamental principles, and we try not to use the term data strategy at all. There needs to be one strategy, there needs to be one goal. We are not here to support or create a data strategy. We are part of the business strategy, and it's just one holistic strategy that helps you drive your organization forward. Similarly, we are not a data team, we are not an IT team. There are no conflicts among data, IT, and business teams and who owns what. We are embedded within the business, we are the business. Thirdly, I always use the term clarity before complexity, because there are so many shiny toys, tools, AI, Gen AI, everyone's trying to run towards the hype, right? But nobody's really able to articulate simple questions like, what's a business problem? Do we understand the problem? And what are we doing to solve that problem? I think that's kind of like the fundamental things. And the last two things I'll say is, there's so many technical jargons we use. And sometimes when I see some of my team members talk and I see myself talk, it sounds like a NASA briefing, and then I realize, oh, I'm going to lose my audience and I'm also going to lose the funding I have. So we try and emphasize that, try and make it as simple as possible, because if your kid, it's kind of like that layman terminology, right? If your 5-year-old doesn't understand it, you're not doing it right. So it's kind of like following that philosophy. We are not allowed to use terms like data warehouse, data products, Snowflake, or any of those complex terminologies. Just focus on the problem, just talk about how you're going to solve it. And finally, our logo, and this is not my terminologies, but a leader who I follow, and it said that your team needs to be like a thermostat, not like a thermometer. Try and change the temperature, not read it. So that's kind of like our data strategy in a nutshell.
Dak?
I'd probably come at this from a bit of a different perspective, because I work with customers that are all over the gamut in terms of maturity level. When we first start meeting with customers, the first question is really, what is the problem you're trying to solve? But what we're really trying to figure out in the background is really, how mature is your organization? And there are some organizations, typically the banks, insurance companies, healthcare, heavily regulated space, have a pretty good idea about what their data is and where it sits and who's allowed to access it. Other organizations, it's clear they don't have a strategy, and the tension between data engineering and architecture and IT becomes very quickly bubbles to the top. And we start to get into this discussion of, well, who owns the data? I have no idea where it actually is. So I guess my take on this is organizations that do have a strategy, understand where their data is, understand how they're allowed to use it, understand the quality of the data, are organizations that can move fast. And organizations that spend more time battling between IT, architecture, and business priorities are ones that are mired in the muck and can spend 18 to 24 months just trying to figure out how we're going to solve that problem. And usually by the time they figured it out, the problem's no longer relevant. It's that ship has sailed. So strategy is an interesting one. I mean, organizations that I find have one, even at a high level, just a high level principle that we're going to use data and we're going to be nimble and embed the technology and the business teams together to be able to make effective decisions are the ones that are, to me, have a strategy. And it's not a technology thing, it's a business function. So I would encourage everyone, figure out where your data sits and how you plan on using it, and that all starts with what are the key problems that the organization is dealing with, and they're usually, the rest of it falls out fairly quickly.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, everyone. The next question I have, when it's come to data strategy, it's like a very important one. We need to drive and measure the value of any data initiative you do in the organization, any data project you do, right? As a leader, I'll start with Sumit. How do you measure the value all of your data initiatives in the organization?
Great question. I mean, if I really had $1 for every data project that we worked on or we put in the slides and they were termed as strategic, I'd be a billionaire by now. But really, I think from a value perspective, there's always the metrics and the KPIs and the OKRs, and there's so many things, but really when you try and walk into the office and you see how many people want to talk to you and they're not trying to hide their face away and they don't want to talk to you, I think that's kind of like the key element of whether the team work that your team is doing is working or not. But more importantly, I think it's really about, is your team or is your data strategy or is your organization really using data to solve problems in a much faster way and are making less blunders, right? Do you see when you're in presentations, when you're in meetings, are your organizations or are your executives really saying, oh no, why didn't I know this? Oh, this is a surprise. When you hear terminologies like these and as and when these terminologies start to reduce, you know that you are value driven and your organization is starting to leverage the value from that perspective. And yeah, that's about it. It's really trying to make it simple.
Thank you, Sherman. Doug, I will take you.
Yeah, I'll relate back to a story that we were having like a data leaders summit with energy sector accounts out in Calgary, and the data leaders from 3 or 4 big companies were there, and everyone asked, what are your priorities and how did you come up with those priorities? And we started to get I'm going to figure out how to get the SAP Business Warehouse to actually produce a report in a timely fashion. And another one, I'm working on a master data management strategy. And another one came up saying, I've got a IoT data initiative. And then the last person, I've known him for years, really sharp cat, he just said, well, I'm trying to drive $3 billion to the top line, and I have an initiative to save us $500 million in our operational efficiency in upstream drilling operations. And there was one person who was focused on value, and the other 3 were focused on the muck that were supporting the value statements. And it all comes back to what are the business initiatives that are driving whatever your team is aligned in. And most of those initiatives have very, very well-defined value propositions within the organization. Like, this is a $1 billion problem, we're going to solve it. You're going to play a role in it, but if you continue to look at the technology pieces as there's 97 things we want to implement, and they're all bits and bytes across an infrastructure, and that's the way you're thinking about, I deployed it faster, or I got the MDM problem solved faster, it's hard to articulate that as a value proposition to your executive team. So that's our focus. We look at what kind of problems can you solve and what's the return on it. And then there's everything's strategic. There's always 3 or 4 big moonshot projects that the executive team has identified that are important, but there's usually gold in all the mundane problems that the business teams are actually mired in and day out, and small incremental gains across tiny automation problems and reporting and analytic problems drive usually bigger returns for the companies than the moonshot projects do. So understanding and documenting all of the individual gains that you're getting at the project level ultimately will allow you to come up with a value prop as to why having the proper team in driving your data strategy makes sense and is something to invest in. And it's usually quick incremental projects delivered quickly that make or break.
Thank you. I'll go to Sandeep.
How I see this one is that it has to be dollar value in terms of how we can, because data sits in between, right? And that's where sometimes it is hard to find that realization, whereas people see we are investing heavily on this, but we are not seeing the outcome, right? Compared to any UI application or the web application where the outcomes are very quickly visible. Where I see that how that value should be measured is that how it is tied to the business KPIs, and also how just give an example from the technology front. Like if business is looking for an AML monitoring, and if my data is reaching to them after 2 days, that is not giving them the value. If I can make it a streaming, then that can make them a real-time value, and that's where the value comes in automatically from my expenses. Again, ingesting data to my domain is no value. How many consumers I have, how they are leveraging. These are the value return in terms of the data platform we built. These are the measures which I take with my business to understand what they need, just not bringing data and saying it's a data. Because we all say data is like gold, right? But you have to leverage that value. If you're just having it, not using it, it's like having it a safe deposit, but not using it anyway.
Thank you. Arish?
I'm going to bring up something that doesn't quite seem relevant to data strategy, but you will see the connection in the moment. So if you ask a junior or a new CHRO how we should hire or decide which candidates to choose, and they will say we need to measure all of the metrics and we need to compare it with our strategic goals and basically a lot of the measurable outcomes. But if you ask a senior HR professional, they will say, you do it based on instinct. I come from the analytics world, so I would be shooting myself in the foot if I say that we should just throw all of the metrics out of the window and rely on instinct. But why do I bring it up? Because abstract, complex decision-making is still a mystery to us. We don't really know how we do it. We come up with methods, frameworks, like Sumit said, all the KPIs and OKRs, but frankly, we don't really know how to do it, at least not well. In individual learning, there are 4 stages. There's unconscious incompetence, and there's conscious incompetence when you realize that you're bad at something, essentially. And then you get to conscious competence. You start becoming better at something, but you have to think about every step. And the last stage is unconscious competence. You just know how to do it. You're so good at it that sometimes you can just do the right thing without any conscious, logical thinking coming through your mind. The intuitive decision-making, whether for hiring or for data strategy, is the goal we should strive for. And when we get to this stage, we will be able to tie the value of data strategy to the eventual business value that we know is truly important to the organization. But we cannot get there until we go through all of the previous stages where we use all the numbers and all of the feedback from projects and talking to various stakeholders to help us build enough experience, data points, and help us structure our thinking so that we can eventually get to a more accurate, intuitive thinking. Now, the dangerous thing today is that I would say most leaders are not there. In terms of good, accurate, reliable, strategic thinking, and everyone wants to say that we are going by the objectives and the metrics that we have carefully set. But in reality, decisions are made based on intuition. So I think it's especially important now in the age of data and AI to use all of the information to help us build our intuitive thinking and our decision-making capabilities better, so that we can tie the value of data strategy, and any strategy, frankly, back to business value.
Thank you, Raj, to put that completely different kind of perspective and linking those together. My last question, which is most interesting for the audience, we are living in the Gen AI and agentic AI. So I'll start with Sandeep. How is this Gen AI or agentic AI changing or impacting your data strategy?
Yeah, I think no discussion completes without discussing about Gen AI or agentic AI, right? So, yeah, Gen AI been around for a while now, right? Where we see in Scotiabank and many other places where we are finding our data strategy, I would categorize into two blocks right now. Just the first is the data quality and the metadata, right? The importance of those was always there, but it has become more predominant nowadays, where we are changing to make sure that we have these values, because the way, if any chatbot works, right, and if they don't have those metadata and the data quality there, the underlying output would be very bad, right? In a way, it will create more hallucinations to give you the wrong response, which we cannot afford as a bank, because it creates a lot of reputational risk for us, right? Suppose if a human being made an error, it's actually forgiven, but if a chatbot gives you a wrong response, you will just quickly diminish the trust for the bank immediately, right? So that's where we are very careful about that aspect going to that direction. Reputation is the key. The second aspect, which I would like to keep on again highlight, that until now, our data strategy was mostly around structured data. Suddenly, we just got focused to our unstructured data too. It was there, but it was not that to level, which is now in terms of our strategy, because with that, we can involve our vector search, we can give a RAG-based solution. As a bank, we are not very open in sharing internet-based or global. We want to make it our customized solution, and that's where because of our regulators compliance, that's where the data strategy come very handy in terms of in this Gen AI, where we have to build this model which is very scalable and very precise, and the data quality is both efficient, and it also gives you the running an efficient outcome for our customers and the business.
Sumit, your take?
I think Gen AI is kind of exposing how strong your foundations are in terms of your data capabilities, because I think everyone within the organization now quickly wants results. Oh, let's generate this content, let's get these forecasts done, let's get this done. But then underneath, we are starting to expose, oh, but this number doesn't make sense, or this doesn't make sense. Why is it giving me 5 different variations of the same thing? So it's kind of created this importance for governance, and even though governance was never sexy and nobody wanted to do it, it's still trying to become more and more important nowadays. So there's this layer of how much effort do you put into governance. So we are seeing this model of minimum viable governance. What's the bare minimum to get in just so that you can get and focus on your outcomes, right? The second thing we've noticed is 18-month programs no longer work. Everyone wants faster results. So we have to really look at it in terms of iterations, constant iterations in terms of starting small, learning from it, fixing the issues, try again. The faster you fail, the better it is, because I don't remember, but there were so many stats with Gartner around the number of Gen AI and AI projects which started at POCs but never really moved into production. Right? So you really have to think about those foundations, and you really have to think about failing first and failing quickly before you invest millions of dollars into this. The third interesting thing I've noted is just around the titles. My data analysts now refer to themselves as prompt engineers. So that's kind of like the new thing. Even though they've started to do those things, I think the titles haven't evolved, but the job certainly has. They are expected to play those roles. And there's this big component of literacy around the organization because even though your question is specifically around Gen AI, a lot of executives think Gen AI is AI. It's literally just scratching the surface of it, right? So there's so much importance and there's so much criticality around teaching your organization the right terminologies on what AI is, what AI isn't, and do you really need AI?
Thank you. I know we are sitting between lunch and us, so Doug, just quickly.
As Gen AI has changed the discussions we're having with companies, and I think the whole advent of generative pre-trained models and a chatbot UI has just given business users a much greater level of comfort to expect more out of back-end processes and data. It's almost been a bit of a false expectation set that this stuff is just super easy now. And we're actually seeing companies now get themselves into a fair bit of trouble because they see the whole Gen AI application development process as being just a development product, right? A very, very cool front end. And they don't realize that there's still science and discipline required to manage the back-end processes that are feeding the models that are basically powering the front-end user experience. So business teams are off hiring developers and building front-end user interfaces that run well for about 7 seconds before the back-end data becomes a problem. And then they hand it back to the data science and data engineering teams, and they're stuck with this thing that they need to figure out that was never really optimized properly. And they don't necessarily understand the front-end UI. And we're finding that there's this new tension coming up between the developer community and the back-end data science community. Developers are still trying to manage software development lifecycle as if it's a traditional kind of software development process, where back-end data science is a much more iterative, constant monitoring in order to ensure that it's going to run properly. So it's changed the game a lot. A lot of great ideas are coming out of it, but I think people have lost the discipline required to manage it properly.
You got to teach it manners.
You have to. Otherwise, that whole, and the previous speaker was talking about trust. You know, the day that your Gen AI application goes rogue is the day people lose confidence in the system, or you know, you're in the paper because you've done something inappropriate with a front-end user experience. And people also just, I want it to be a Gen AI-based application, and you're looking at them going, you know, it's a fairly simple data join with a little bit of a regression thing on it. I can do that 10 times more efficiently. And they go, but I want it on OpenAI. And you're like, you're going down the wrong path. Please back this up a bit. So great ideas are coming from it, but without a lot of discipline is what we're seeing.
Thank you, Doug. I know we're over time, 6 minutes. Sorry, I had to cut you now there, Aris. As overall, we really learn about the data strategy piece of it. We learn about what different organizations they're doing, and we also talk about the Gen AI impact of everything. So I personally learned a lot. Hope you guys, folks, really learned from this conversation. Please join me, and big applause to our panelists.
Thank you so much, and thanks a lot, Dipankar. That was great.